Hey guys, Mike here. So I hope everybody enjoyed their day off. So we're back at it tomorrow, and we'll have important news coming out as well as earnings coming in the morning. And those earnings have a lot to do with us, the consumer, and whether or not we're really still spending and stuff. And so we'll go into the charts on that. We'll also talk about some charts that show that maybe what's going to slow down the S&P and the Qs finally if this happens. We'll look at that real quick. Also, we'll go into Tesla. We'll go into crypto. And also a stock I just lost track of, which I would not have because it has had a big run, but is reaching a very critical level, which is either going to launch it or it's going to get rejected once again from this level. And so this is, and by the way, just as a side note, I don't know if you can see that thing behind me right there. That is not a pool. That is a gaGa ball pit. I don't know if you ever heard the game. The elementary kids play it, I guess. First time I ever heard of it, but they wanted one. My son and the neighborhood kids always come over. It's kind of the hangout house. So I decided to tear down the climbing wall I built for them and build that instead and bring in 800 pounds of sand, which is fun. Did that myself to build it for them. So yeah, it's not, I see people in the comments saying this might get in that pool back there. No, that is not a pool. So just let me know in the comments, do your kids play gaga ball or have you ever heard of it before? So now starting off, this is what I was talking about with you guys the other day. The S&P 500 has closed at new record highs in 25.9% of the trading sessions in 2024. So that's 30 records out of 116 trading days in 2024 thus far, which is still amazing, right? I mean, it really is an amazing thing. Now, when you look at the chart real quick, key level to watch this week, the rest of the week that is, 5,500. Do we break through it? Do we reject off of it? We're right there at it. So we'll see if they want to bring it through and push it through or at least get up to it going into next week. We are above the midline point of that channel. We did close above it, but I'll be surprised. 5,500 is not a resistance level, but in this market, you never know. I would expect, we'll hit it, come back down, see that daily fair value gap, maybe try to pull liquidity before we try to break it, or do we finally start to get some sideways action right along that 5,500 area right there? So just watch like 5,435 and 5,500 going into Thursday, and then of course we'll reassess what we're going into Friday because remember we have monthly OPEX going on. Now looking at what could finally start to slow this train down, it's obviously your semiconductors, right? And you got Avgo. We'll go through a few of these, right? And this one has moved up in a very structural manner, right? When you look at it, it consolidates sideways for many weeks, multiple times so far. So this does have very good support setting at these levels right here, as you can see, but it's going straight up like so many of these others, of course. And it has a stock split coming up next month. And so that also helped move it up after earnings. But when you look at this, are we about to go after this big move up into another consolidation phase? So if it does that, 'cause remember this carries, I think it's the 10th highest weight in the QQQ for sure. I'm not sure where it's at in the S&P, but on that ticker I use where I put like 8 of the largest 10 stocks, this is it. And so again, this one's basically just sitting in this channel right now. As you can see right here, if we connect those two. And so maybe this is where we stay. That's a big weighted stock, right? So then another one, MU. I know somebody's asking about this one. Again, the weekly chart looks like it's going straight up a cliff right there. This is another big mover, of course, well above the old all-time highs and all that good stuff. Super stretched. And when we look at it, you can see if we just pull up the moving averages, for example, how far above. Remember, this is MU. Okay, this ain't NVIDIA or something like that. And so, obviously I'm going to draw this trend line out. We'll see if we get another bounce, if we ever start to pull back. But when we pull at the moving averages, you can see this thing is way above the 200-day for sure, which is way out of character for MU. That's just the way most of these semiconductors are. It's 70% above the 200. You just scroll back and you go, yeah. That one right there, the most when we were pumping in 2020, 55%. Besides that, no. This hadn't been one of those kind of stocks, but yes, it's on the semiconductor hype train. So there it is moving. So, eventually, yes, you can't go straight up forever. It's going to get it. I'm looking at that candle right there going, maybe a topping tail or something. It's hard for me to tell if there's a wick on the bottom of that or not, but pulling up the momentum indicators, you can see we're right here where you want to be. Really super momentum going on right here. Just barely got into overbought. But when you can tell, if it stays at the top right there, this is usually on MU when you get like these round type patterns where it starts to consolidate and pull back down to that trend line. If MU does continue up, watch levels 156, 159, then 164. If it drops, 149 for the gap fill. And then when you look at another big one, Taiwan Semiconductors, right here, you can see as another one, obviously super stretched out up there, but just getting into overbought. You can see where the stochastic is, same place MU is. It normally doesn't step there for a long amount of time, if you notice right there. And so, most of the time, and so we'll see if we get one of these or we're going to get one of the drawn out ones. And again, it has nice support at these levels I'm circling right here between like 128, 138, and then you go to 148, 157 right there. If it did decide to do that, or just consolidate, or do we just continue to push this train up? But again, when you look at this one right here, that to me was like a topping tail right there, which I'll tell you about. I'll tell you what that is in just a second. But again, it's another one you pull at the moving averages, super stretched above the moving averages like everything else. And so this is another one out of character for, because if you look in the past, it's usually bouncing from that 50 to that 100. I mean, this goes pretty far back, and you can see it never gets that far overstretched, but that's just kind of the mania type of period we're in right now. But when I was talking about a top and tail, it's really a reversal pattern, at least one to go sideways and consolidate, and that's what a top and tail is right there, as you can see. Unlike like SMCI, right? These are indecision candles. Like, oh, which way we're going, which way we're going to go. And when you look, this one right here, I think is going to go up because you got that trend line, right? You got this area right here, which was resistance, which makes sense. So anywhere from 945 to 1,000, somewhere up in that area. But the reason why it could pop hard on Thursday and Friday is because the options market loves it. But also Elon Musk came out this weekend and says, hey, Dell, NVIDIA, and SMCI are collaborating to help him with his AI factory. And you can see right here what they're talking about. And so they're building, I guess, the liquid cooling technology in the racks or whatever they're talking about here. So that could obviously pump this even harder. And I found this just to show you guys the difference between like what's going on now with NVIDIA versus like some other stocks where you keep hearing the dot-com bubble. And when you see this, obviously on the market cap as far as the S&P is concerned, it's number one. It'll keep bouncing back and forth on that. Net profits is fourth. Employees, who cares? I mean, it's 208th. Stock return, 218%, third, okay. Revenues, 26 billion, that's 37th. So, and then revenue growth is number one, 262%. And so it's got stuff to back up why people keep piling into this thing. And I found this meme or whatever right here, kind of laughed at, like NVIDIA stockholders looking at their gains every day. And let me know if you're one of those people and stuff. But yeah, if all of a sudden you see, finally we start just consolidating, not moving down, not crashing down, none of that crazy mess, but just consolidating after these massive moves up. Yeah, I mean, you got to think that's going to slow it, right? Because you got Semiconductor and the other large Mag 7 are just been pulling the market up. But if we get, the RSP to break out finally and start to move up, and all these other stocks start to move up just like it did back in, November of last year, then you're going to see the market probably continue to move up, right? But if they don't, and then these stocks just start consolidating sideways in a channel, right, up and down, then yes, we can finally get a cool off right there heading into July. And usually the second half of June, if I'm not mistaken, is usually not the greatest or whatever, especially after you have a big first 2 weeks. But July, again, I'll bring you the data on that when we get close to July, is pretty darn good. Now, Tesla, you can see basically it's in this short-term channel right here, heading towards the bottom part of this. Still couldn't hold the year-to-date anchor VWAP. When we talked about it, it was right here. Will it hold? Nope, not quite. So, you can see it bouncing off the bottom of this channel, which would be perfect for it. I mean, we've had multiple bounces here. So, again, this is the hourly chart we're talking about here. But again, it has to get above the year-to-date anchored VWAP. That is the key for Tesla here. And, it's just one of those things that people get surprised, like it just won't hold its gains, right? But, that's to be expected because it's not the Tesla. And NVIDIA and all the rest of them are getting the love now. Tesla just isn't getting, this super call sweeps rolling like it used to. But you can see it is heading up, and it's heading up this trend line right here, which is around 193, 194, depending on when it hits it. And so as long as it stays above the low anchor VWAP, that's when we hit that trend line of all trend lines right there and get that super big bounce off earnings. But as long as it stays above that, the 50 and the 100, which it is, it can continue to push higher. Okay, so just watch that 193, 194 area right there. That's going to be that trend line where I would expect probably a rejection if it's going to get one. All right, now when you look at the bigger picture on Tesla, I mean, you can see it's just not like back here, and then if we scroll back even farther, back over here, you can see, I mean, this is when it was, all about Tesla and the call sweeps and doing the stock splits, and it's like NVIDIA, right? And these crazy, like, cliff-like moves up, and this is the longest we've seen it consolidate like this, which is just kind of nuts in a way, but that has something to do with the fact that they need AI pumps and not about the cars, because with high rates, it's going to be really tough. I think one of the EV makers finally filed for bankruptcy. Took them long enough. I expect others to follow. Now, when you get Palantir, finally did break out above that trend line, which we talked about. Big move up. Now you got this area right here, which is resistance. It did close above it. So what you're really looking at to see on Thursday, do we get a follow through? Maybe it comes up, tests, and then takes off right here. And if that does it, obviously we've talked about if it breaks above that trend line, you're probably, which is a terrible line, let me actually draw a real line in here, going to see 27, 28 pretty quickly if it breaks above that. So again, if we get a retest here, probably going to rocket up between 27, 28 right there. And then if we try to pull out even farther on this right here, we can kind of see even more, the MACD crossing that moving average right there. Stochastic has turned up on the weekly right here. So, and actually above the 50. So we're getting right above it. And so if that continues, then yes, you can go ahead and put 33 on your radar to be hit, assuming this momentum continues and we don't get any weakness going to the last 2 weeks of June right here. Which of course, I mean, this is another stock. Why is it pumping? AI, right? I mean, AI. That's what's pumping right now. And so Palantir can be one of those. Now, when it comes to crypto, you can see Bitcoin, we already talked about it, still in that channel right here. But we talked about watch this fair value gap. Watch to see, I think we talked about it like a week ago. See if it moves back down into here, and that's what we're doing. We're moving back down into here, grabbing liquidity right here. At the bottom of that is right around like 63,376, I believe it is. If that does break, then obviously we can head down. 60K is going to be your next level to watch for sure. There still is part of a fair value gap there as well, which you can kind of grab liquidity. But again, when you look at momentum and things of that nature, I mean, it's been stalling out as the market's been moving up. It's kind of diverged away from the QQQ, which normally does not. But you look on the weekly and you can see momentum has stalled out and turned over in these bigger time frames. So, something to keep an eye on. Ethereum, same thing. We talked about this huge fair value gap right here. And that's exactly what it's digging into. Grabbing more liquidity. All the altcoins are getting destroyed because Bitcoin, of course, is showing weakness right here. So the momentum's turned the opposite way at this point in time. And, it's shaking people out. And the big thing to look for is if it breaks that trend line right there, that's going to be your biggest time to start getting worried, right? Because it has bounced off that multiple times, moving up. Been pretty strong for it. This is October 2023. So that's what you got to watch out for. And if the market starts to turn weak and crypto is already weak, then that's not a good combination. But you can see even on stochastic here starting to turn over on that weekly, and it's the larger time frames you really want to look at. So you got your momentum indicators turning down right now. The RSI is not below the 50 or anything, but not exactly what you want to see right here. But we'll see if we, shake out more hands. Then if the market gets moving, maybe crypto, at least Bitcoin, will reattach and move how the Qs do. Now, one of the stocks I actually forgot about, or lost track of actually, when I was messing around with these little formations right here, and I actually drew this back in 2022 to see what would happen, and it actually followed it all the way up, and I just lost track of it. But you can see it's coming up to this area right here, which is a key area of resistance, and it actually closed right above it on Tuesday. But again, what you want to look for on Thursday and Friday is if it can break above, retest successfully, and then start to take off. When we actually scroll over and look at this, you can see if it can get past around 101.65, which is that daily fair value gap right there, then you can see 113, 114 fairly quickly in the next week or two. So just watch that one. This has had a huge move up and everything. So congratulations for people who didn't lose track of it. Now, when it comes to earnings, you got Kroger and Darden to watch for sure. Especially Darden, let us know, if we're still spending, going to restaurants all the time. And then you'll have unemployment claims before the market opens, building permits, Philly Fed manufacturing index, housing starts, and then crude oil inventories at 11. And a couple FOMC speakers coming out saying all the stuff they usually say. So probably no big deal there, but just watch Darden and see how they report. That's really what you want to see, because they own a boatload of restaurants. So that kind of tells us a little bit. Obviously, the month-to-month sales have not been good, and retail sales that is. And so we'll see if that continues to hold. Watch 5,500. for the S&P if it continues to ramp up and stuff. And it's all about the semis, right? If the semis cool off, the market probably does cool off. Or what? Watch RSP and QQEW to see if they push even higher. Because RSP, I forgot to put it in here, but it has a trend line coming all the way down just like it did last time. So it breaks above that. It's like a stock, right? It starts to break out. So just keep that in mind. And again, I'll start researching, putting together the rest of June. And July, I'll probably surprise you with all the data I found on that one. It was really interesting. So anyway, hope you guys got some out of it. Hit that like and subscribe button if you did. And I will see you guys tomorrow.